Hey folks, in maybe an endorsement of my channel or a bit of support anyway, might be a slight step up. Someone's asked me to make a video and I'll try and oblige. I guess if people are getting some value out of them and I get asked to make a video on something, well, I'll well and surely try and do that. Someone asked me, could I make a video showing the differences between Hakea sericea and Hakea gibbosa? And I haven't made videos on Hakeas before. If I see a nice plant that I like, sometimes I'll make a video on it. I did Grevillea sericea the other day, but why not? If you want a video on Hakeas, I can start doing videos on Hakeas. And it's probably a good request to ask for because this one's happened an absolute showstopper this year. It's really, really beautiful. I'm in the Southern Highlands again. I'm on the Wombeyan Caves Road, just on my way to do something else, but I just stopped in here, just not far from Mittagong or the area known as Welby, to make a video at least to start with on Hakea sericea. Now, the request was the difference between Hakea sericea and gibbosa. For a start, if we can just pull every weapon that we've got, Hakea gibbosa is only on the coast in the Greater Sydney area. It's from about Gosford there, or might even be Culnura, which pretty much Gosford, down to Waterfall. It's only in that area. I see it in the Royal National Park pretty commonly. And it's normally in heathland. It's normally grown in heathland and shrubland. Hakea sericea gets much further afield. It's in the Sydney area commonly, but it's also here in the Southern Highlands. I think it goes up into the Blue Mountains. It's scattered up the north coast as well. It gets into Queensland, just in the southeast. It's up to around, I think, the Sunshine Coast. That's about as far as it goes. It goes right down to the southeast corner of New South Wales. It goes up into the Blue Mountains, but it doesn't really get too far west of the coast. And it's a weed in Victoria, apparently, and South Australia. And I think it's a weed in some overseas areas. So it does have a reputation now for being a weed. Now, one of the first things, just look around me if you can, just capturing this absolute showstopper here. I've just got hundreds of shrubs up to 3 metres tall. Now, Hakea gibbosa gets to 3 metres tall as well. But I'm in some dry sclerophyll woodlands. I've never seen Hakea gibbosa do this sort of thing. This is just an observational trend of a species. I've never been surrounded like this with a mid-story of Hakea gibbosa, and not in dry sclerophyll woodlands either. And I'm outside the range for gibbosa here. That makes it easier as well, but I doubt you'd get into a sclerophyll woodland and just be surrounded by a mid-story like this of gibbosa. When I see gibbosa in the heathland, I tend to see sort of sporadic plants. I don't see a continuous mid-story like this. However, take that with a pinch of salt, and maybe one day you'll be in a heathland or shrubland and you'll say, well, Dan, I'm surrounded by a really strong mid-story of Hakea gibbosa. I just never seem to notice that. But Hakea sericea, you can be surrounded by a really sort of co-dominant mid-story of it. I've seen this 3 times in the last 6 weeks. A patch at Lucas Heights in Sydney and another patch at East Hills in the Bankstown area in Sydney at a little reserve there. Just a really strong mid-story, sort of like a bit like Sericea spinosa, but it just doesn't make that sort of density. But if you've got to run your tape measures through Hakea sericea, it can be a little bit painful. It's meant to have terete leaves to 7 centimetres long. Gibbosa are to 8 centimetres long, but that's not much of a difference. But the most obvious difference with gibbosa is when you look at the tips of the branches, they're very densely hairy and the leaves are very densely clustered. Sericea is known for sometimes having hairy branchlets, but they then soon go glabrescent. Glabrescent sort of means they start off hairy and then they go hairless or almost hairless. And I'm really trying my best to get this in focus without, and it's starting to hurt my hands. There are some hairs there on sericea. There's some hairs on the branchlets, you can see them. But in gibbosa, the tips, they are densely hairy, really, really hairy. It looks like, I sort of tend to think, it looks like someone's covered them with sort of cobwebby material. They've got this really densely hairy look, and I also think the leaves are a bit more clustered. There's a lot of gaps between these sericea leaves. They tend to be a lot more clustered in gibbosa, and gibbosa also have a bit of a bluish tinge. I find they've got a bit of a bluish tinge to the foliage, especially the hairy growth. These are very green in sericea. It's a nice forest Hakea. We've got the fruits here, the follicles, or maybe we should look at the flowers first. Here's the flowers. They're meant to be in axillary clusters of up to 7. And I don't think that differs much to gibbosa. You probably wouldn't be able to pick them on the flowers much. Just for anyone who doesn't know, Hakea and grevillea, they are strongly related and strongly aligned. And there's been a fair bit of investigation done, and the two genera are sort of mixed up in terms of relationships. There was a move or a proposal to name all about 400 grevilleas Hakeas, and that was going to massively expand the group. What I've heard recently on the grapevine is Hakea will remain with, I think, about its 100 to 150 species, something like that. And about 150 grevilleas are going to be split into 20 genera. So we're going to have 20 new genera coming out of grevillea, where about 150 species are going to be grouped into those genera. So we can keep the rest of grevillea, we can keep Hakea, and we sort out the sort of, I'm assuming, paraphyletic taxonomic relationships. So that's just a background on Hakea and grevillea, and just keep an eye out for the new groups that are coming. So the flower structure is exactly the same. We've got these flowers with 4 tepals, 4 perianth parts, 1 female part coming out, the carpel, and 4 anthers in there, just like grevillea. Hakea get these really strong woody fruits. And in gibbosa and sericea, they're about the same size. But I just think in sericea, they've got a bit less wrinkling to them. They've sort of got more of the surface area being sort of smooth. They've got some dimples there. That's a real typical sericea fruit. I just think the fruits of gibbosa are a bit more wrinkled. The fruits are about the same size. I don't think there's any real difference in the fruit size. Really strongly beaked in sericea. I think they say something about the seeds of gibbosa being orientated in a different fashion to the seeds of sericea, but you would have to open up the fruit to find that out. You can get sort of more wrinkling in the sericea fruit. I've got some older ones here, and I just want to try and have a look at these. They're so hard to pull off the plant. It's like you need secateurs to pull them off. These ones are a bit more wrinkled. They talk about the wrinkling in these Hakea follicles. They're not pods, they're follicles in the Proteaceae a lot of the time. I just think sericea has a more smooth texture, like this one here, compared to gibbosa, which is a bit more wrinkly. So just remember, there is some hairy thickness to the stems or the new stems. There it is there. You can see the hairs. And then they talk about them going glabrescent. And gibbosa does the same thing. Gibbosa, as the stem goes lower down, it'll sort of tend to lose its hairs as it goes lower down. But trust me, when you look at the new growth here of gibbosa, it's very, very densely hairy. What they call villous. Villous just means with really dense hairs. There's so many terms to describe hairiness, but villous just means sort of really densely hairy, a bit like a beard. And just remember the habitat features. Gibbosa, it's not really a woodland species. It's a heathland species. It doesn't mind a bit of sort of moist grounds. It happily grows along fire trails in those coastal national parks. And you can tell me I'm wrong, but I've never done a woodland plot and been surrounded by a dense mid-story of Hakea gibbosa. It hasn't happened to me. Maybe if I was in a heathland or a mallee heathland, I'll see if I can get surrounded by a mid-story like this of gibbosa, but I've never really observed it, but I'll put it on the bucket list and see what I can observe. And folks, here I am in totally different habitat. This is Heathcote National Park, just off the Princes Highway. It's probably closer to Waterfall than it is to Heathcote, but it's about halfway between. And there's a place here you can just pull over on a little gravel bit, come into a track. Kingfisher Pool's down that way somewhere, I think. And you just got this really dense, really moist teeth at the moment. The fire trail's pretty boggy. And you get things like Leptospermum scirosum, Banksia ericifolia. There's a fair bit of Leucopogon microphyllus, I think it is. And here's Hakea gibbosa. It's just growing here in the wet heath. This is where it loves to hang out. On the main trail near the road, I'm pretty sure Hakea sericea is there as well. It could be Hakea propinqua with really big fruits. So it's worth, having a bit of scrutiny on these Hakeas. There's a ton of teretifolia here as well. This is more teretifolia habitat than it is sericea habitat. And I'll argue it's more gibbosa habitat than sericea habitat as well. So I think gibbosa has a real habitat preference. It's in this moist sort of wettish heath. Going out, there's a little bit of sort of sandstone woodland around. Just remember the range, it's only from about the Gosford area down to Jervis Bay, and it doesn't go too much further west up the mountains than that. But you can just see gibbosa from the track. It's never easy, is it? I'm probably going to get up to my ankles in mud, but let's see how we go. Gibbosa's just got this look to it. It's got these really pinkish, hairy branches to it. I'm in the full midday sun here, and I hope I can do it justice. But if we're going to get some branchlets, they're just covered in these really fine hairs, and sometimes it's really, really obvious. I'm going to try and get some of this pink stuff up here. And this is what I associate with Hakea gibbosa, these pink tinges. And I'm trying to do it justice. You've just got these really densely villous stems. There they are. Just compare that to what I showed for the sericea. Very densely hairy. That's what they're calling villous. Hard to disagree. Just means really sort of longer clustered hairs, like a beard, I guess. Those new leaves are very hairy. And this whole branch that I'm holding, and it's about 20 centimetres long, maybe 25, has not lost its hairs. It's still very hairy and felty where my finger is there. So that's what we look for with gibbosa. And this habitat, I know I showed you. Sorry, I've just got nowhere to go here. I'm going to go in the mud. It's all part of the fun. It's hard to get gibbosa dominating like you get that Hakea sericea in the mid-story dominating. I mean, even through there, over here, it's hard for this gibbosa to sort of spread out. A lot of the time when I see it, it's hemmed in by its neighbours. Banksia ericifolia, Leptosperma scirosum, Alocasuarina distyla. We've got Banksia oblongifolia as well. It's really hemmed in by its neighbours a lot of the time in a typical heathland fashion. So that's another thing I sort of associate with it. It sort of doesn't have a lot of room to move about. Rest might go up to 8 centimetres. These leaves I've got, I reckon are about 6 to 7 maybe. And these nice pink tips, very hairy, very, very hairy. I'll just get the fruit and we'll have a look at that. Again, it's a shrub to 3 metres tall. Yeah, this one here would be about that. I rarely see them taller than that. Here's 2 fruits. They are very hefty, probably 3 to 4 centimetres across and probably 3 to 4 centimetres long. Okay, they do look very sericea-like, I'll agree. There's not a lot of, they are smooth like the sericea I was showing, maybe not a lot of difference between the fruit there. Yeah, if someone handed me this, it would be, and this is obviously an old branch and the hairs have been lost a little bit here, might be a little bit hard to tell whether it's sericea or gibbosa. I'd like to know the habitat, where it came from, maybe how many plants there were. I think, like I said, if you can get the follicles opened, I think there's a difference in how the seeds are orientated within the follicle. So just remember that's a reported difference too. But I just think the plant has a very different appearance. The way it has these sort of straight upright stems that are hairy at the tips. I guess sericea has a similar look, but what I sort of go for is all this clustered stuff here. It's like really dense clustered foliage. It tends to put on these really sort of dense branches as well. It's almost like it'd be a great place for a bird's nest. Just remember what I showed with sericea. There was a lot of spacing between the leaves, and I just think it's got a bit more of an open canopy to it, if we can say that a shrub's got a canopy. There's a Hakea teretifolia coming through there somewhere, but that's got very different fruit to these. So maybe don't go on the fruit for gibbosa versus sericea. That would have a lot less weight, but go for the habitat, go for the hairy growth, go for just the amount of clustered foliage along the main stem as well, just the way it puts a lot of clustered branches together. That's what I go for with gibbosa. And I think it's just putting its leaves in a lot more of a clustered fashion. They're longer than sericea. I think in general they're longer most of the time. But it's the hairy tips, the frosty hairy tips that do it for you. That's probably the best way I'll describe them, sort of frosty. Like they've got little ice particles on them. But it's just those white hairs. So hopefully that helps if you're getting into Hakeas. I'll have to make a video on Propinqua when I look up some records. I don't see Propinqua anywhere near as often as the other ones. Just a little bit more footage. Here's a small Hakea gibbosa. And you can just tell by the, again, it's got the pink tips, hairy growth, the really pink hairy stuff here, all hairy along. That's only 1.8 metres tall. There's no fruit on it. Might not have even flowered yet. But even when you got a sapling, you can tell just the tips there. And there's not too many of them here. There's not too many. There's only like 1 or 2 that I can see just in the immediate vicinity here. Just trying to show that growth. It is a prickly bugger, if I didn't say that. It's very, very prickly.